Good morning, and welcome to the Procuresmart podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Sharon Cook. With over 20 years of experience in hospitality purchasing and consulting, and a PhD in procurement ethics, I'm on a mission to procure smarter. Procuresmart is a cloud-based boutique purchasing agency. Our team has experience with projects of all sizes, including conversions, renovations, and new construction. We offer dynamic customer service and competitive pricing. Reach out to us today to learn more about how Procuresmart can purchase for your next project. Welcome to Procuresmarter, everybody. Today we're going to talk to Jason Mcbride. He's the host of a podcast called Real Hospitality Live. He's a passionate entrepreneur, public speaker, and business owner of over 30 years. So stay tuned. I would like to invite you to stay tuned to after the podcast for a very brief announcement about our new partnership with Nap City and Nap Cabs. Let's talk to Jason Mcbride.
I've done that before.
So you are a man of many hats, right? You are a podcaster, a speaker, an influencer, a husband, a father, a chef. Is that right?
All of those things, not and all at the same time.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. What's going on in your world right now?
Well, my world, of course, has been hospitality for over 30 years. So we all know what's going on there, which is hopefully we're coming around the corner on a lot of things. So of course, we're still looking at some pretty big challenges, though, where we've got issues with prices going up and people and not being able to find labor, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's a lot of things that are happening, and in Canada, where I am, we were on the precipice of losing some government support that has really been helping out operators. And this past weekend, they extended it through till May the 7th of next year, which is good because that's rent subsidy and that's wage subsidy, which is super helpful for the industry. But there was a lot of people afraid that they were going to have to leave the keys on the counter and walk out the door.
Right. And I think that's kind of where we're at in the States. I don't know how it keyed into you are to what's happening here, but all of that subsidy has gone away for us. And I've been in hospitality for about 24 years, not on the restaurant side though, but all of our local restaurants are struggling in a real way.
Yeah. And it's not just one thing. It's kind of being battered by storm after storm after storm. So unfortunately, there's not not necessarily a place for operators to go to as well to kind of get guidance. They're in many cases just winging it and doing the best they can.
Right. And are you guys seeing the same labor issues that we're seeing in the States where, most of our restaurants, we're back open, we're seating, but from what I hear, you just cannot get labor.
So I have a couple of answers to that.
Okay.
My first answer is to operators, go back to your resume pile, and everybody who you thought was maybe overqualified, too old, didn't fit your particular perfect vision of that particular staff member, I bet you could fill those positions. Because those people are still out knocking doors and have been for a year.
Right. So that I was one of the questions.
LinkedIn,
yeah. Go ahead.
If you go to LinkedIn and you scroll at all of your contacts, or even scroll in your secondary contacts, you will see open to work, open to work, open to work, open to work, open to work. These people aren't holding out. They're looking for work to feed their families, to pay their bills. And they've been either overlooked or they've never received a phone call because somebody looked at their resume, whether that was the operator or their HR type, and they've been passed over for whatever superficial reason. And we have those people who are willing, ready, and most part trained.
Right. So one of the questions that I wanted to talk to you about, you recently did a podcast discussing ageism in the hospitality in your restaurant life.
Yep.
Do you think that is something that is new,
Nope.
COVID generated, or is that something that's always been out there and now you're kind of like, listen, it's an untapped market?
Oh, 100%. It's not new, unfortunately. But what we've done, I mean, and I have this conversation quite often. In the last 30 years, our industry has changed, and not necessarily for the better. Well, there's more restaurants, there's more technology, there's more equipment, yada yada yada. But what we've done is we've gone away from having a respect for professionals in the industry. When we look at, and it's almost a nostalgic thing, but when you look back at trained chefs, trained maitre d's, trained servers, trained bartenders, et cetera, there was a place for these people, and they were professionals, and they either were certified, or they had gotten some training, or they had worked within a reputable place to put that on their resume so that they could go to the next level, or they could expand on their skill. And what has happened is we as an industry have completely devalued that education and that experience, and tried to, in many ways, like in all things, gone for the next shiny new thing.
Right. So let me ask you, one of the things that my husband and I started my life out in waitressing. I don't know if you remember the old Shoney's restaurants, but I was a salad bar girl at 16. Yes. Yeah. And that was my entry into the restaurant work. And I'm a firm believer, everybody should work restaurant at one point in their life. Everybody. Yep. You don't truly understand what these people go through until you're on your feet 10, 12 hours a day and you're dealing. I mean, it's just crazy. But the thing that gets me is this system of paying servers $2.85 an hour, mm-hmm. and with the understanding that, they're going to make tips. Mm-hmm. And do you think this generation that's just unacceptable to this generation now?
I think it's unacceptable anywhere. If we were having a conversation about what that pay was, and if it was in another country, for example, or another continent, we will go, oh my God, they only pay those people that much to do a job. I mean, that's the conversation we're having about Chinese labor building iPhones, for the love of God, right? Or Mexican labor building appliances. But we're not that. I mean, who ever thought that it was a good idea to put people in that position and pay them in that way? Right. I mean, and I mean, its operators, of course, have a huge advantage, especially in the U.S., who have kind of gotten together and lobbied and said, "Oh, we don't want to pay anymore." Well, sure, you don't want to pay anymore, but that same individual can go work at a gas station and at least make minimum wage.
Mm-hmm. Right? Guaranteed minimum wage. This is not what you're telling them is, listen, you may make tips, but it's not guaranteed. So every night
that's a human right, and that tip is a gift. That tip is a gift. It's a human right, and what they've done is they've gone and said, you don't qualify for human rights.
Crazy.
And where I am in Alberta, Canada, we have $15 minimum wage.
Across the board.
It's $15. Yeah. And it doesn't matter whether or not you're making tips, or you're in the kitchen, or you're pumping gas, or whatever it is, $15. So, and there are provinces who have gotten together and tried to make it a little bit less for servers, because they try and say, the servers make tips. But that has nothing to do with the operator. And it also has nothing to do with payroll. These people are still going out and being your workers, your representatives, or people who are the face of your business. You really want to pay the face of your business $250?
Right.
What the hell is wrong with these people?
But let me ask you on the flip side. You're going to know way more than I know. Is there a counter argument to be made that servers are like, listen, don't mess with our tips, okay? There's always this dichotomy of the server who works at Shoney's and the server who works at the high-end steak restaurant, and mm-hmm. they're taking home pretty decent money. Do you mm-hmm. think there's a section of those servers who are like, listen, we're fine where we're at?
I think the conversation between tips and operators is none of the operators' business.
Interesting.
It's none of the operators' business. They have no right to that money. They have no right to being able to dictate what happens to it, and they certainly shouldn't have a right to be able to pay people less than, again, somebody who's going to go pump gas or sweep a floor or work in a manufacturing plant or whatever that happens to be for the bare minimum that's legally allowed to be paid. So I think operators have absolutely no business in that conversation whatsoever, because if you are my server, for example, and I give you a $20 tip, that's between you and I. Mm-hmm. If the operator came over and said, "Thank you very much, I'll take that," or "By the way, because he gave you $20 tip, I'm going to pay you less today," that's absurd. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely absurd. And shame on those operators who support it.
I see that I have hit something that you're passionate about, and I'm excited about that, because I do think
Very
it
much
is something that we are not going to resolve this labor shortage in the U.S. in our restaurants until this is addressed. Nobody wants to work for that money.
Well, that's true too. But the other thing is, when we look at it, it's not necessarily just about the money. It's about stability. And we're in Canada. We're in the fourth wave, believe it or not. And there's every day or every week there's the threat of, well, we may be in lockdown again. You may have to go and try and find another job, or you may have to go on unemployment or whatever that is for the fourth time in mm-hmm. a year and a half, 2 years. So it has made it unstable, and it's not, that unto itself isn't the fault of the operators, but it is certainly the fault of us not having a strong enough voice or an organized voice working on our behalf to be able to say, look, you can't shut the largest industry in the world down at a whim. And you also can't produce proof that restaurants are the problem. I mean, and this argument has been had ad nauseum, but the conversation is, well, first thing we're going to do is talk about shutting restaurants down because people go there and gather. Well, restaurateurs have done everything they possibly can. I mean, they basically have people in hazmat suits going around with divider plastic between tables, et cetera, et cetera. And in many cases, they've put them into even outdoor dining with inside of a geodesic bubble dome to have them, right? But you can shop at the Gap, or you can go to Costco, and that's not a problem. Nobody's having those conversations. And also, they're not having conversations about any other industry, but it's only hospitality that has been targeted in that way. And of course, I mean, it's crushed hospitality, it's crushed tourism, and it's made it very unstable to work in the industry.
Well, let me ask you, one of the skills that you had listed was a hospitality trainer.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Tell me what that encompasses for you.
Well, I mean, I design courses, of course, for hospitality. I've worked with tourism industry associations. I've done taught colleges. I've done speaking engagements for Cisco Foods, et cetera, et cetera. So, and my passion really is about kind of coming back to the basics of hospitality and the reason why we do it, why we do what we do. And the reason why we do what we do is because we love it. But I always say there are three parts of hospitality. The first one is sales. If you don't have people who are working for you on the floor, whether that's your bartenders or your servers or your hosts, if they're not trained to do sales in any particular way, then you're losing out. So you've lost money on the table right there. The next one is manufacturing. And I say this in kind of a loose way, where you need to have systems in place. So you have to have systems in place in the kitchen so that you know what your portion is, so that when you and I order the same dish, they don't come out different. And if I go to a place another time, it's going to be the same meal again. So, and those things are there not just for consistency, but also for food, for cost. And the third one is love. What we do because we love what we do. We love hosting people in our home. We love hosting in our business. We love entertaining. It's all about bringing that back. And we've been doing that since 800 years before Christ. It's recorded 800 years before Christ in Greece, called Xenia, and it was so important in culture and society that we treated guests and strangers in a welcoming way and treated them well, that it was thought that Zeus himself would punish you if you treated a stranger in a poor way or gave them bad service. Now that's saying something.
It is. Yeah, that is. That's awesome. I mean, it's really fascinating. I understand manufacturing. I come from an FF&E background,
Mm-hmm.
and what you're talking about is quality control, on my side of it. What
Sure.
you order today, you want to get every time you order it.
Right.
And yeah, so I understand it from that aspect. So one of the things, I did a deep dive. I kind of stalked your Instagram. I stalked all your social media. I was like, I just want to get in there and see what this guy is.
Sure.
And you talk about being an activist.
Yeah.
And I can feel, like, coming through the screen, this passionate energy coming from you. Like, what are you passionate about? What are you out there activating for?
Well, I think it's right now. I mean, it's coming through in people being passed over. I mean, I've kind of almost always been the person who isn't afraid to speak out. So, and somebody has to in some cases, and many people would say that's just because I can't shut my mouth. But I feel really wronged, and I feel like when we're talking about ageism in hospitality, or we're talking about equal pay, or even we're talking about it's any other thing where somebody has been either segregated out or not been allowed to participate or been passed over. I think it's wrong, and I think people need to be called out on it. And I think for far too many times in our industry in particular, people just put their head down, look at their belly button, and don't say anything, and then we end up with problems within being able to hire. We end up with problems with we really have an image problem in the industry and bringing people on, because in many cases, and even if you put out a comment on social media, many people will come back and say, well, that's a job for high school kids or college kids.
Right.
Well, it wasn't always, and we certainly didn't build our industry to what it is and what we know and the nostalgia that we have behind it, without having a history that we've built on of professionalism and respect and certification and all of those things that are important. So we've moved away from that, and for the lack of a better term, it pisses me off.
Mm-hmm.
that I think that we really need to be addressing this.
You're very active on YouTube. You have a ton of videos out there on YouTube. I watched several of them. Do you have a favorite episode or a favorite guest that you've talked to?
Well, I mean, anybody who knows me knows that Grant Cardone, I'm a huge fan of Grant. Grant really motivated me to start the webinar, and also Brian Rose from London Real, and I put it out there as a leap of faith and invited Grant Cardone to come on to my show, and he's now come on twice. So I would say that Grant's, of course, one of my favorites. They're all awesome, but I've had some great people on, and from Brandon Steiner, who's a sports legend, and he also started in the hospitality industry. Kevin Brosh, who's one of the co-hosts for Iron Chef and is a Thirsty Traveler. One of my dear friends, even since he's come on the show and a little bit before, is Chef Dwayne Keller, who's cooked for Julia Child's 90th birthday, and he's done 3 inaugural dinners for the White House. And I mean, that's a guy, when you talk to him, you just tune everything out and hang on every single syllable, right? I mean, and he's such a down to earth dude, right? And he's also originally from Canada, so we love him even that much more.
Right. So when you started this show, you talk about these names that you really admire. Did you go into it thinking, I'm going to get these guests, or I'm kind of in that spot where it's like I find somebody online and it's like, oh, they're super interesting. Do you think they'll want to talk to me? Or did you just go into it and just throw it all out there and see what happened?
I'll tell you, I thought, oh gosh, if we ever get to like 100 or 200 or 500 shows, maybe I'll reach out to Grant Cardone and see if he'll come on. I mean, Grant's super motivating and he's super inspirational, and I thought, okay, well, that's maybe then. And then somehow the universe put in front of me, and I don't know how or when I saw it, but I caught something in an interview, and I caught Grant's email address.
Right.
his email address.
The Holy Grail.
Right. And I went, what have I got to lose? If I ask it and he never replies, well, I asked and he never replied, right? But I put it out there, and Grant's all about helping people. So he's like, let me help you get to the next step, or if there's any way I can possibly help you. So I called him on it. I wrote him a letter and said, I would love for you to come on the show. I'd love for you to talk to our industry about sales and why sales is important in the industry, and why it's important to teach your people, how to sell properly and how to represent your business properly and all of that. And he messaged me back, let's do it. This is my assistant's email. She'll know you're calling. I almost fell over. So we're 2 years ago, it'll be 2 years ago this Sunday. We did it on Halloween.
That's amazing.
And so I've got a video of Grant Cardone dressed up as like a voodoo guy with the top hat and face paint and the whole thing for Valentine's Day. And it was a really a validation of what we were doing. So if you have somebody who's going to take their time, like Grant, and is going to come on and give you that respect and give you their time and really help you out, then other people look at that and go, oh, if Grant Cardone has been on the show, then I have no excuse for not coming on the show.
Great. That's excellent. So one of the YouTube videos you did that just kind of sucked me in was you were talking about food costs increasing by 30 to 40% in the coming season month.
Yeah.
Yes, 12 months.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of like, that's a big number.
Mm-hmm. That's a huge number.
And what do you think what do you think is driving that?
Oh, so many things. I mean, I would love to say that that's the cost of doing business, because gas prices are going up, the labor shortages, et cetera. But we look at that. We even look at shipping things, right? I mean, I had a conversation with somebody not long ago, and we looked at, for example, if you're going to ship a fridge that's made in China, it used to cost $75 per fridge shipping cost in the shipping container. Now, that same fridge is a $500 shipping cost in the same shipping container on the same boat. That's in the last 12 months.
Right. So let me put that a little bit in bigger numbers for you. Last year, maybe 18 months ago, I could get an entire shipping container of furniture from Asia for about $4,500. And this month, that same container on the same ship and the same route is costing me $20,000. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I did a whole podcast on where are our shipping containers at, and it's not an easy solution. People are like, oh, China's got the containers, or they're doing this. And it's not an easy solution.
No, it's certainly not. But I think also one of the things that we've done when we talk about the cost of food, we also have to go back to operations in restaurants when we talk about food cost. So right now, and I just heard this on our local radio station actually just a couple of days ago, and it just happened to catch my ear. But the cost of beef is up 10%. So, for example, if your food cost is already at 28 to 35% in a restaurant, and now all of a sudden your food cost has gone up by 10%, well, your margin is gone. So, because in many cases, and I would say in most cases, your margin is anywhere from 18 to probably 5% on a dish. If now you've lost 10% of that in food cost alone, now you have to put the prices up. So what we've foolishly done as an industry is we've gone and we've given the impression that food is cheap. It's inexpensive. So we've gone and said, well, we've got a bargain on this, and we've got a sale on that, and this combo is going to be cheap, et cetera, and restaurants have become the cheap place to go. Where again, like I say, until 30 years ago, it never was. If you were going to go out to dinner, it was a treat. It was something that you saved up to go and do. It wasn't the cheap meal.
Right. So, it is actually cheaper to go out to eat these days.
It is.
Than it is to cook at home.
But it's about to not be. And we as an industry also have to educate and say, look, yeah, we used to be able to charge you, $18 for these ribs, but we can't anymore because they cost us $18 to buy them each. And now we have to go and cook them. And we've got to pay somebody. We've got to keep the lights on. We have to pay the insurance. And we have to go down the list of all the 100 things that we have to put that money into. Otherwise, we've lost the money. So we now have to look at that and go, okay, when you're going to your local grocery store, for example, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, I mean, you're also seeing the cost of food go up. Well, that's the same for us because we're still buying that same food. We might be buying it in bulk in some cases, but we're not getting it at that much more of a deal than you're getting it at Costco.
I saw somebody on that podcast comment below that the solution was smaller portion sizes. Is that a Band-Aid, or do you think that's a real solution?
I think people come to expect a particular portion size. So, and I mean, you say that, and it's funny. I just read yesterday in Canada, they were talking about inflation and the cost of goods. So, and a can of condensed milk, for example, it used to be a 355 milliliter, or sorry, it was a 374 milliliter can. And now those cans don't exist anymore. They're actually, I think it's a 345 milliliter can. So, but the prices either remain the same or gone up, and but the amount of product in the can is less. And
right.
Nobody said a word. All they did was just change the can size and ship them out. Yeah, I mean, that speaks unto itself. I mean, if we're going to try and offer a smaller portion size, I mean, people come to expect a particular portion size, and again, it's coming down to consistency in manufacturing, like I said, right? If you're used to getting a pizza that's a 16-inch pizza from a place, and they start sending you a 14-inch pizza, you might notice the difference. And eventually, if it comes down to a 12-inch pizza and it's still $20,
right,
right, because that's what they
if
have
your
to do.
pizza's getting smaller, but your price is still the same,
or going up.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
You have to explain, though. We have to educate people that all along we've been making almost nothing. So, and now that nothing was our profit margin, and it's gone. So we have to put the prices up. So,
in your opinion, then, let's flip back a second. What's the biggest hurdle? Is it the food cost, or is it the labor shortage? Which one do you tackle?
I think there are two storms coming at different fronts.
Yeah.
So, and again, like I said at the beginning, the industry has been battered by so many storms in the last 2 years that anybody who really didn't have a strong foundation of money in the bank was washed away. People who are still hanging on to the lifeboat aren't going to be here in 12 months because we're not going to be able to do wage subsidy and rent subsidy forever. And the insurance industry sure as hell didn't help us out. So especially in Canada, and I love calling them out for this, but as soon as everybody went, oh, well, this is a pandemic, it's a disease, it's a virus, it's an act of God. They drew the blinds, locked the door, and went and hid behind the couch when people came knocking and saying, well, we paid you insurance for all these years in case of loss of business. So can you help us out? The response is deafening. There's no response whatsoever. They're still hiding behind the couch.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's across the board. That's U.S. and Canada is happening.
Right.
I think a lot of our restaurateurs have been left to hang out there. A lot of our hoteliers have been left to hang out there.
Oh, the hoteliers have really, I mean, they've had no choice but to either shut down or move on or just barely hang on. I mean, that's I feel for restaurateurs in a big way, but the hoteliers, wow.
Yeah, it's taken a huge hit on everybody who works. I've been in a hotel maybe 3 times since the pandemic, and every single hotel, they no longer come in and change your sheets or clean your room. They don't have the staff.
Nope, they don't.
So it's just like, is that the new normal?
Request more towels. I think it will be, because they're going to look at that and say, well, we've been, we don't necessarily need to go in and change things out if a guest is there for, more than one night. I think I too have spent I guess three different nights or three different trips in hotels over the last 12 months, let's just say. And the same thing has happened is if you're going to be there for a week, then they'll come in like on day 3, I think, and maybe change out your sheets. Or if you need towels, then just come and get them at the desk. Or
Right.
they will pop in if you put your dirty towels in the tub or whatever, and they'll grab them and go. But they're not going to come in and vacuum and dust and do all the cleaning through. And I mean, in comparison to restaurants, I mean, we kind of lump everybody into the same hospitality industry, but they don't have the option to go to takeout, right? Like restaurants did. So restaurants, at least in many cases, they went, well, John, let's adjust our menu to a takeout menu, and see if there's a way that we can still make a buck at that if we're not having a dining room. And here, at least, they're allowed to. I could order an old fashioned and a plate of wings from the place across, or the place up the road, and have them deliver it to me. But you can't do that in the hotel industry. If you can't have people in, you just can't have people in. So
well, and I'll tell you,
really
I know it's a little bit of a spoiled problem, but I was at the Sweetgrass Inn in Charleston last weekend, and beautiful, beautiful complex. And one of the first things, I had gotten there very late. I had to be up very early for the Monday morning meeting. And I said, do you have room service? And he said, we no longer offer room service. We're so sorry. And I was like, okay. So here I am. I'm in this beautiful resort. It's like 10 o'clock at night. The restaurants are shut down because they don't have staff. You can't get room service.
Right.
I'm way out on an island, so nobody's going to Uber me anything in, So I was just like, well, that's something new.
It is. That's a new reality. And I hope it doesn't continue to be the reality. So
yeah, me too. I was going to say, this has been amazing. I would love to have you back. You are so full of so much information and passion about this.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Tell people how they can reach out to you.
We can find me on LinkedIn, where I basically live. And also our organization, Real Hospitality. So you can look us up, Real Hospitality Network. And that's how to find me.
Great. Thank you very, very much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Okay, have a good day.
Take care.
And that's our show for today. Thank you for listening to the Procure Smarter podcast. If you're enjoying our show, don't forget to follow us on Spotify and leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. If you do, we'll shout you out on our next episode. We're currently interviewing guests for Season 2 of Procure Smarter, dropping next spring. If you've got a take on the hospitality and purchasing industry, we'd love to hear it. For interest in being a guest, you can reach out to us at our website, LinkedIn, or Instagram. For all Procure Smarter episodes, find us on Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else you listen. For service inquiries, please reach out to us at our website, procuresmartco.com. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Procure Smarter podcast. Procuresmart has partnered with Nap City to introduce NapCabs, an automated hospitality space. These fully UL safety certified modular spaces are customizable revenue generators. These cabs provide a restful retreat with all the amenities needed to work efficiently, including desk, charging station, and 40-inch television. The built-in safety features and HEPA air filtration system allows for clean, safe, rest, and work environment. Available in Universal ADA model, NapCabs offers a private space in any place. Reach out to Steven Rosenfeld at www.napcity.com for more information, and be sure to tell them that Procuresmart sent you.